One thing that people are very passionate about, as well as their politics, is their food. And we hear from you, our viewers, every week since we shoot One Detroit in various locations, whether it's a deli, whether it's a coffee shop. And recently, I picked up the Detroit Free Press and their coverage of the best of restaurants in Detroit. And I really wanted to sit down with their restaurant critic and their food writer, Mark Kurlyandchik. And he was good enough to join us here at Great Lakes Coffee today and have a cup of coffee with me. Mark, it's good to see you. Welcome to One Detroit.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So is it very strange to walk into a place like this? Are you always the critic when you walk into a restaurant?
I try not to be. I mean, it is pretty tough. Yeah. You know, coffee shops, things like that. Sometimes I show up in sweats, but yeah, oftentimes, you know, it's hard to go out and just have a meal, you know, a celebratory meal with my wife without it feeling like work anymore.
Without kind of taking a look around and saying, this is really good. So you've been with the Free Press how long now? How many years?
It just hit my 4-year anniversary the other day.
You know, what I really love reading about your pieces is it's very personal, and you really put a personal touch in it. And kind of looking at your history, your family were political refugees from the Soviet Union, and culture is very important to you, and food. How does that figure into how you write about places?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think for me, food has always been a lens into culture, and particularly because of my immigrant background, food has been just so important. You know, I don't have an accent when I speak English, you know, so you wouldn't know that I'm an immigrant if we ran into each other on the street. So for me to preserve that identity, I really do that two ways, through the language and then through the food. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's, you know, in Detroit with its history of waves of immigration, I mean, that's what makes eating in and around Metro Detroit great, is all these different people from all over the world have come here, and they hold on to their culture by offering it with us. I mean, it's really a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we do a lot of coverage of stories and tradition and how that all connects with our food, because I think that sometimes is where most of our memories come from.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, a food, you know, you can taste something and it can spark a memory from, you know, childhood that is just so, it's transporting. It kind of makes you forget where you are, and you can kind of travel the world, you know, in 140 square miles, or, you know, expand it outside of the metro area. But yeah, it's really amazing. Well,
being a food writer right now, and especially the restaurant critic for the Detroit Free Press, and taking a look at where the food scene is in Detroit, I mean, it's gone through a massive change, an expansion really in the last 5 years. How would you describe it?
Well, you know, the restaurant industry is very cyclical, and we've had a boom. I mean, that's anyone who's spent any time eating in and around Metro Detroit has noticed this. I mean, hundreds of restaurants open, and I think that's, you know, maybe the pace is going to begin to slow just because of economic factors. I mean, you have the cost of labor has gone up, the cost of real estate has gone up, particularly in areas like downtown and midtown. So that's changing things. I wrote an article over the summer with a slightly hyperbolic headline that said the restaurant boom is over, and here's why.
And how much feedback did you get on that? Are people like, whoa, wait a minute?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think maybe it was a little bit earlier. It was kind of ahead of all these closings that are happening now. You know, the beginning of the year started with 4 kind of major marquee restaurants, and not old, you know, not old time restaurants that kind of led this boom that opened maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I'm talking about, you know, your Gold Cash Gold, or your Green Space Cafe, or Craftwork in the West Village. Unfortunately, just, you know, with all the competition and all these other factors, are being forced to close.
Are we going to be seeing more of that? I mean, is this just the eventual evening of how much resources is going to be able to go around?
Well, I think we've had this huge boom in real estate prices, in the amount of restaurants, but we haven't had a corollary boom in population, right? So it's the same. It's a limited pot of people who go out, you know, to spend their money at these types of restaurants, and that number hasn't grown. Conversely, we haven't had a huge influx of employees or training. You know, there are some initiatives that are trying to kind of fill the pipelines for talent in the service industry, but right now it is very much an employees game, and they hop around from place to place.
Yeah. And, you know, as someone who's trying to make sure you have stability with the restaurant and make sure you
very difficult.
Getting that crowd coming back in with the same caliber level of service has got to be tough.
And it's expensive. You know, if you spend time training your staff and they just, you know, leave in a month or two, you have to start that over again, and that costs money. So it's driving all the costs up.
So what are some of the different trends that we're seeing? I know you spent a lot of time when you put together the restaurant of the year, but not only like some of the new restaurants, the older ones getting awards for, you know, the long time, and, you know, neighborhood places. And what are we seeing now?
Yeah, I mean, I think this year for me, what was most surprising was maybe the hyped up big name restaurants didn't deliver as well as some of these grassroots places, you know. I'm thinking of like Yum Village and New Center, or Saffron des Trois over on the east side, and I'm not the only one that's written about them. But they both started as food trucks. they're kind of very community-oriented, community-led. They don't have PR teams or marketing budgets, and they're family-run operations. And those have really kind of brought something new to the area, brought something exciting and fresh, more so than some of these, maybe $4 million kind of big build-out, splashy build-out restaurants. And that's exciting to see, because the silver lining of real estate in downtown and Corktown being expensive is now it's getting out into the neighborhoods. I was at Ivy Kitchen and Cocktails just last night. Great new spot on the east side. Nia Marshall fully self-funded that restaurant. And so I think that hopefully it continues to go in that direction, barring any kind of economic recession, because restaurants, unfortunately, are the first place where belts tighten.
That's what we start to see.
Yeah. So as long as the economy continues to grow, I think we'll see more of that kind of activity in the neighborhoods. I mean, 7 in Livernois now, especially with the streetscapes done, I think you're going to see even more restaurants
and
opening up.
And that is such a huge deal for the businesses there right
Yeah.
now. Okay, 2 more things to look forward to in the couple seconds that we have left. Is there any openings that you're looking forward to?
There's a few. Baobab Fair, which is also, it's just on the other side of Yum Village, on that same building in New Center. It's an East African cafe that's run by a refugee couple from Burundi, and it's going to be unlike anything that we have in the city, and they have been delayed for years now. I spoke to Mamba a couple of months ago, actually last month I saw him at Yum Village, and he said they're really close to the finish line. I'm really looking forward to that one.
All right, we'll be looking for that. And where can we follow you? Facebook, Instagram,
all
Twitter?
All of them, yeah, freak.com, yes.
Freak.com.
Yep.
All right, we'll be reading. Thanks so much, Mark.
Thanks
It was
so much
good
for
to see
having
you.
me. It's a pleasure.